Okay, I'm wearing the hat that says, "You don't see me. Who am I? I'm the Holy Spirit." Am I the Holy Spirit? No, my name is Bobby Burrows. But, I'll try and give you what the Holy Spirit would tell you based upon what we know from the Course in Miracles book. It's actually called A Course in Miracles. It's actually multiple books, depending on how you want to put it all together, but it's a pretty thick book, and it explains what's going on here on planet Earth from perhaps it's the perspective of, I don't know. I hate to use somebody that everybody doesn't know. There was that guy that used to be on, trailers for movies, and he would be like, "Hey, Vern," and he was a really, like backwoodsy kind of guy, or I don't know. We always said like, "Hey, Vern." It was a comedy for kids. What was that guy's name? Maybe I'll remember in a minute. But, yeah, just in A Course in Miracles, and when you read maybe Gary Renard's book about the disappearance of the universe, I forgot it's what he called it. Everybody says trust the universe, and then Gary Renard comes out with the cover of his book that says the disappearance of the universe, and it's like, well, how am I going to trust the universe to make sure everything turns out right when the universe is going to disappear? I guess we're going to have to read Gary Renard's book about the disappearance of the universe and ascended masters. So, Gary Renard, who is definitely a Course in Miracles kind of guy, big time, big time, big time, big time, and he wasn't to begin with. Nope. That's why he got the visit from the ascended masters. But what happened? Well, you need that book, Gary Renard. Oh, you're going to ask me how to spell it. Well, it's French. Last name's French. And I'm not French. But I'm Canadian, which means that we know something about French, even when we're English. Because we all have to learn some French somehow, some way. And I'm going to tell you, there's probably a lot of people at like Harvard University who are American who speak way better French than, all of us so-called bilingual, but we're not Canadians that are, one thing or the other. To make a long story short, I think Gary Renaud, maybe it's Renaud. Maybe it's like Renault, there's a little French car, Renault, and it's Renault. That sounds like Renault, but it's pronounced Renault. So it makes it very difficult to try and figure out how to pronounce things if it says it's a French word. And I can tell, you can tell. You can tell if a word looks Chinese or if the word looks, you know what Chinese looks like. You know what Chinese lettering looks like. Even if you can't read it, that's where I am. I can't read Chinese, but I can tell that's Chinese, and I can tell that's Arabic. Can I tell the difference between Arabic and maybe Persian? If I had a sample of the two, I don't know. It's a good question. I'd like to do that. I'm like Cosmo Kramer. I'd be going, Jerry, you got me on this one. I don't know, Jerry. I don't know if I could tell the difference between the two. And then Cosmo is going to go down to the library, and he's going to bring a bunch of quarters for the photocopy machine, and he's going to go and get a whole pile of books. No, he's just going to get one book that's in Farsi. I think that's the language of Persian, modern day, what they call it, Farsi, and another book with script of Arabic. Calligraphy, beautiful, beautiful. And then he's just going to go with that, and then he's going to go and make a bunch of copies of those pages, and then he's going to go back to Jerry's, and he's going to make sure that Elaine is there, and George is going to be there, and Newman is coming, because he needs, anything to do with finding out fraud and, art fraud and mail fraud and language fraud. Newman is like, he's just a sponge when it comes to that stuff. Mr. Peterman will be invited, and he's going to have to come. Elaine is going to bring Peterman. George Costanza's parents are coming. Does it sound like an interesting episode? Anyway, that's what Cosmo Kramer's going to do. He's going to say, okay, everybody, here's 2 pages of paper, and he'll have them stapled together, and he's going to give them to everybody gets one, and then shh, George's parents cannot shut up. They're so immediately blah 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 back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's a huge comedy thing, and they're going to look. And they're all going to put on their glasses, and Jerry's going to pull out a huge magnifying glass, and I don't know, Kramer's going to have one of those monocles like Colonel Klink, and they're going to be looking and looking and looking at the 2 sheets of paper, flipping back and forth, trying to figure out, is that Arabic or is that Persian? And then in the end, they're going to go, Bob, talking to me, they go, Bob, I don't know. This looks the same as this. This looks different. And in the end, what was it? So Farsi is the same as Arabic, you're saying? And then I go, no. I go to say, I heard. Because I don't know. I've never been to Persia. I've never been anywhere near they speak Arabic. Other than if you walk by a place with immigrants from those countries. But I said, I think Farsi is Persian, modern day. In Arabic, well, I don't know of an ancient name for Arabic. Is there a predecessor? A predecessor word that means Arab before the word Arab became commonly used for people of the Middle East and North Africa. It's just because, these cultures go back. Oh, Semitic. Semitic people. So, Semitic languages, and then that opens the door to all kinds of ancient languages that could be part of this. Because there's all those languages from all those little countries up and down the Mediterranean. They all had their own dialects and things. Jesus spoke Aramaic, but they also had traditional Hebrew in the temples. Somebody's trying to fuck with me. Right in the middle of me telling you just a simple story. And this is what happens to me. It's just horrid. It's just horrid. Because that's the way that the world, blah, 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 2 thumbs down on people trying to fuck with me right now. Because they are. How are they doing it? With all kinds of evil intention. In the end, everything else out the window. So how much evil intention am I allowed to take on? I can't help you out because I'm backed up by, the whole, people that back me up. And the people who are attacking me are what? Well, did you want more about the story about how to compare the 2 things? We're talking about a fun episode of Seinfeld, and this is what happens. So, for those of you who are enjoying life and living life like a Seinfeld episode, we're in the middle of a real war on planet Earth. And I've been attacked for my whole fucking lifetime because I'm a light worker. And probably a starseed, although I have no confirmation. Because that's what happens to the light workers. So who don't you see right here? Well, you see me, and the Holy Spirit of me is telling all of you that there is a war. And the people who are fighting me are devils. Devils in the worst format. Do you remember the cannibals? Hannibal Lecter and Jeffrey Dahmer? That's who we're dealing with. People who will never ever surrender and mean it. In other words, these people have to be exterminated. And they look at me and they got to say, well, you got to be exterminated. But the whole point again and again is, what am I about? I'm about humanity surviving. And these people want to exterminate everybody on the planet. The 1%, and well, the story was that the Georgia Guidestones, which said they wanted to go and reduce the world population from 8 billion down to 500 million, they want to kill off 7.5 billion people. Anyways, the story in the past week is that the Georgia Guidestones were destroyed by a a directed energy weapon. Anyway, so that's what this whole thing is about, because it's Armageddon. It's the apocalypse. It's the end of evil on the planet, and the evildoers that are doing this, even at this late date when they know they can't beat me and they've lost the war. They're so evil that they won't let go of their evil in order to admit to themselves that they can't win. But I was telling you about A Course in Miracles because it said, somewhere between A Course in Miracles and Gary Renaud's book, Renaud, it says that we wake up from this nightmare about living in separate bodies specifically. Seems to be the idea that we living in bodies gives us the idea that we're separate from one another. And the illusion becomes incredibly strong. So strong that people... Well, we can only hope that that's true, that they do wake up from their evil nightmare that they've drawn me into. So, is it promising? Yes, it is, because it's something to look forward to. And it's a lot better for me, for these people who are so mentally ill, to be cured of their mental illness rather than be punished for trillions and trillions and trillions of years, according to the Lake of Fire philosophy propagated by, the Christian Bible. Well, I mean, that's very medieval. In those years, they locked people away in the insane asylum. They were crazy lunatics, and they lived there for their whole life because they didn't have a cure. And then modern day, they say they cure people with pills, but that doesn't work because the psychiatrists are the craziest people on the planet. Well, that's just my opinion. What's the proof? Well, they use placebo pills. Everybody knows that pills are placebo. You're going to say only some of the pills some of the time are placebo effect. Well, if some of the pills some of the time work as placebos, then I'm going to say that's just the law. It's the generalized law. And if some of the time, because... I don't know, maybe it was 12 or 15 years ago that all of the editors of the New England Journal of Medicine, the prestigious Journal of Medicine, they quit. And you can go and search on Google, and, they don't suppress that. At least they haven't. The articles are all there in mainstream news that that's what happened. So, if you're relying upon settled science... Nothing is settled. The more you dig at it, the more it becomes obvious that it was just a lot of smoke and mirrors and impressive sounding titles and whole kinds of letters after the name of medical doctor, MD, and then all FRCS and this, that, and the next thing, and PhDs in pharmacology. And then when you learn more and more about it, you see it is a big way to scam people. Anybody puts on the lab coat and then, they get kind of frisky. Next thing you know, they want to play doctor with you. Well, I don't know, but that's still the way it's looked at. Any old woman, I don't know if that's true. Any old man, I don't know whether that's true. That's kind of, I don't know. Put on a lab coat. I don't, didn't we just talk about that? I don't know. Maybe we're done.